Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. So, 8.1's title features are pretty well documented, but there's quite a bit that you will not have known, and some of it does impact how you're going to be playing the game. Some in positive ways, like the island changes and the Paragon boxes, and some in mixed ways, like the dungeon changes. We've also had some truly bizarre levels of communication from the developers on one topic in particular, and as is about to become very apparent, I'm going to magically appear a lot more cheerful halfway into the video. The reason why is because the first section of this is recorded after the fact, because, well, you know, the news came out, and there will be a massive elephant in the room if I didn't talk about it. So, as the tradition goes, let's jump right into it. Blizzard have slipped up a bit with a PTR surprise. Now in PTR, Artifact Knowledge looked like it would continue on as per normal in patch 8.1, and if you go into the PTR, you do indeed see that Artifact Knowledge is still active there, giving your PTR characters lower Azerite numbers than live characters. Well, Blizzard decided to change that one for live. Artifact Knowledge is frozen as of patch day, and will only begin to increase again once Season 2 starts. So if you'd like to skip to the rest of the content in this video, go to the timecode, but if you want to get into the story here, well, let's go. So this has provoked outrage, and looking through the replies, well, I mean, if you look at mine, you can see I'm a bit flabbergasted at how this continues to happen, and I mean, I share Zach and Mike's sentiments as well. Regardless of what this change was, I think the issue is that Blizzard did not communicate it to us. They didn't communicate a massive core change to a game system with their PTR testers. They then left the PTR in a state where Artifact Knowledge would continue, indicating to everyone that this change was, you know, not going to happen. We then log in and we get a surprise. And it's just so odd. It's clear that Blizzard just did not want this to be a discussion. The public test realm exists so that things like this can be tested. Yet they had no interest in testing this or in communicating it to the players. Now, for me, the problem is mainly one of principle. No matter what you think of this change, this is a textbook example of really poor communications. Now, they've done this before with the mob scaling of 7.2 where they slipped it in, didn't think people would notice, and once again, it did not go down well with players back then because there was no communication. Now, just 2 months ago, Ian and Josh both posted about how they wanted to improve communications. And this change is completely going against that, and it brings two things into doubt. First of all, it brings into doubt the weight of those two individuals' words, and second, their ability to act on their intentions. Whether it's a bit of column A and a bit of column B, or, you know, either one or the other, it's not good. It erodes trust between the devs and the players, and it makes it seem like they're not listening. It makes them seem distant. Dangerously as well, it erodes the integrity of the PTR, and therefore risks the quality of future patches and the game. If BfA teaches us anything, it's that good content can't save bad systems, and they need the PTR. I think what highlights the odd nature of this the most is that this isn't in the patch notes. I mean, come on, a few blue posts 2 months ago would have fixed this problem. Now, as for the change itself, basically, many players wanted to get caught up on Azerite over the holidays when they had some free time, or at least they wanted to try to prepare for the new raid. And one criticism that many people have had about this whole system is that they were unlocking much of their higher-end Azerite after the raid was on farm, which kind of meant they didn't really get to enjoy the fruits of their labor in the raid. Now, I suppose what I will say is that personally, I don't intend to keep up with the Azerite curve in Season 2, just like how I didn't with Season 1. If I happen to get some Azerite along the way, then that's fine, but otherwise, I'm not that bothered, I'm not really going to go out for it. The constant grind to re-unlock traits that I've already played with is anti-fun to me, and the Artifact Knowledge system just makes it feel like it's never worth my time to try hard in a given day. And just to be straight up with my numbers, I was Heart of Azeroth level 21 before today, and I can now get to 31 with absolute ease. And I mean, yeah, that's how little I've cared about Heart of Azeroth level and how anti-motivating the system has really felt. So I'll continue to level up my Heart of Azeroth by accident, but past that, nah. I just hope the next expansion doesn't have a system like this. BfA does somewhat prove that people didn't care about the artifact progression much past the core milestones, and indeed what really carried it was the fantasy and how they front-loaded most of the power so that you unlock that, and then you just had a strong fantasy and some cool visuals. But with those things ripped out, the Heart of Azeroth sort of reveals the faults in the system. So there you go, that's one of the big dramas of this patch. For me, just the most thing is, Blizzard, come on. It's not that hard to make a forum post. If your internal systems are set up so that you are this anti-agile, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's just embarrassing. So with the drama of the day covered, Paragon boxes. Okay, this is a pretty quick one, but I think people will be generally happy. So I covered how the boxes are back, but we didn't really know what their basic rewards are. So the Paragon boxes have actually been giving people a lot of resources on live. As an example, 20 service medals, that's like 5 XP potions, 500 war resources, 2,500 AP, 4,300 gold. That's enough to give you a meaningful little boost. It actually feels like your time spent doing those reputations is giving you something in return, instead of just, a shot at amount that you probably won't get because the Legion ones weren't that rewarding. So yeah, I think this is like a better default state for the Paragon boxes to be in. So yeah, I suppose thumbs up on that one. Islands. So islands have seen a lot of change in this patch. Some of it you'll know, but we're going to start off with the new rewards, which really are quite major, and they will impact your gameplay and what you do. So completing the weekly island quest will now give you an extra reward, a treasure map. This treasure map will grant you a war table mission. Yeah, the war tables. Now, sure, they're not tremendously exciting, but the rewards are worth paying attention to here. Now, as far as I can tell, there are a pool of 3 missions. One gives you 5,000 gold as the base reward, and then 1,500 AP as the bonus reward. The next is 1,500 AP as the base reward, and then 2,000 AP as the bonus reward. And the final one is AP as the base reward with Titan Residuum, only about 17 of it, as the bonus rewards. Now, before I break down the maths, it's worth mentioning that the weekly quest now only requires 36,000 Azerite, down from 40,000. Now, that might not seem massive, but what's important is that this now means that it only takes 3 Mythic Islands in order to get the weekly, which really is quite doable. Now, if you take an average of 12.5 minutes for an island, that's about 37.5 minutes of time overall. Each island gives you 350 AP, up from 300 in live, so that's 1,050 Azerite for doing the 3 of them, then 2,500 for the weekly quest. Now, doing these then unlocks one of the follower missions, so assuming you get the 200% completion bonus from the mission, that's anywhere from an extra 1,500 to 3,500 AP. Overall, the time efficiency is crazy. You'll get from 5,050 to 7,050 AP for basically 40 minutes of gameplay, and that probably could be brought down to like 30 minutes if your group is going fast. And that is just ridiculously faster than just about any other method of getting AP, bar maybe knocking out the Warfront hand-ins, which I think are like 8,000 AP in about 10 minutes, assuming you've got the gold to go, on a trip to the auction house. Then, of course, there's the potential of 5,000 free gold. Of course, it's not super regular, and it's not as powerful as a 5,000 gold garrison mission that many will remember from Warlords of Draenor, but it certainly is a nice bonus, especially in an expansion where a lot of players are feeling a little bit hard-pressed by their basic upkeep costs. As for the rest of the islands, well, they have changed the spawning logic so that you're going to get a more uneven and natural feeling distribution of enemies, rather than just, having random adds everywhere spread evenly. So it's more focused towards mini-bosses, and the events will now pretty much spawn in every time. This overall significantly has increased the enjoyability of the islands, in my view, without increasing massively like how long they take to complete. And I think this is especially relevant to the more challenging Mythic difficulty, because in Mythic, the enemies have a meaningful enough amount of damage to their mechanics that the gameplay, it feels like actual gameplay and not just a cakewalk. So honestly, it's so much better than the 8.0 Islands, and Islands probably would have been better received if a lot of these things had have been there from launch, but of course that, was not the case. Now, Blizzard have also changed how the cosmetic rewards work, so you will now get rewards based on the enemy types and the Azerite spawns of the island, and not just of the camps on the island that you kill. So if an island has pirates, then completing that island will always give you your chance to get, say, squawks, regardless of how many pirates you kill. This overall will make the rewards more consistent, and on top of that, they have also changed the reward to scale up with difficulty in terms of drop rate. So that probably means it won't be likely to see, say, level 110 Twinked and Taurus characters farming with XP turned off to get mounts and stuff. Then, of course, we've got the doubloon changes, which, the doubloons can now purchase extra rewards, including mounts, but I covered that earlier in the PTR. So on the whole, you know what, this is actually a pretty good upgrade, I would say. It also means that keeping your characters up to date, that will be a little bit easier. Doing Warfront hand-ins and the islands consistently won't take that much time, and it will get you a fair amount of artifact power in a decently time-efficient manner. On the whole, I think these come together to make the islands a bit more rewarding feeling in regards to the core Battle for Azeroth progression systems. Of course, whether you like those or not, that's kind of a side to this. So the rewards are better, and the gameplay feels quite a bit better as well. As I said, It's a pity they didn't launch like this, but it's good they finally did get better. Oh, and then finally for the islands, the PvP island wins now give you 50 conquest. So yeah, that's pretty decent, I suppose. And really, the PvP islands do actually have fantastic gameplay. It's just a problem that I think a lot of people just haven't felt compelled to do them. Next, missions. Let's just knock out the rest of the follower table stuff. So followers can now level up and gain an additional equipment slot, and then the 7th Legion and honor-bound rep vendors now sell you basic follower equipment to get started. There are also some new missions, and I believe increased gold rewards from the existing missions. Now, I mean, yeah, it's a strange feature. I did not enjoy the Warlords of Draenor version of this, or really most of the Legion version, but the one time the Legion one felt a little bit okay is when you were kitting out your characters with vaguely meaningful, like, legendary and epic gear. I think that this system would be made better if you could earn more legendary gear by doing content on your main that you then give to those characters. I think that would make you feel a bit more involved in the rewards and therefore make it feel like the war table rewards were earned by your hard work and your planning and doing, content on your main character to do that, rather than it just feeling like a bit of a freebie, which is kind of odd. So an odd system to see develop, but let's move on. So Mythic Plus Keystones. We have a surprise Mythic Plus change that came in the patch notes. Back in 8.0, players could delete their Mythic Plus Keystones. Then the next time they say did a Mythic Plus that would be, eligible for a key, they would just get another Keystone at the end. And this was commonly used for people to avoid certain dungeons, and it's kind of a multifaceted problem. It was done by players because a number of dungeons sort of face design issues. There are some dungeons that at high Keystone levels with certain affixes are just not a good time, like they feel really punishing. So why has all this happened? Well, I think the Battle for Azeroth dungeons are generally quite hard, and their designs are more varied than the Legion dungeons. And I think this means that the Keystone's affixes impact different dungeons to greater or lesser degrees. So there's instances where, the sometimes more tricky trash of a BfA dungeon could be bumped up to maybe a slightly too high level by a certain week's affix. Now combine this with the dungeons generally being kind of complex, and then you get a situation where maybe, there are some plus 10s that people just won't go near. They perceive that Keystone as being a dead Keystone. So on live, previously in live, they would have just deleted their Keystone to re-roll another one for another dungeon. That's no longer possible. And so far, the Mythic Plus runners that I've talked to are not really happy with this change. Now, I get why Blizzard have done it, but the problem is the players were dodging a design issue, and Blizzard may have removed the dodging mechanism without working that much on the reason why people wanted to do the dodging in the first place. But equally, it's also the case that if there is any degree in variance of efficiency of dungeons, players will just avoid the less efficient options. And I mean, just think back to the Halls of Valor in Legion before the artifact, the AP buff. Now, past this, Blizzard have added 2 new feats of strength for completing a plus 10 and a plus 15 on time. They're active for the rest of Season 1, and then subsequent seasons will have their own versions of those feats of strength. And they've also launched the heroic versions of the Siege of Bralis and King's Rest dungeons. Next, we have a load of changes that I think are small but generally quite handy, so let's get stuck in. Okay, they've added a new PvP brawl that is themed around Nomi. I'm not sure what the gameplay is at all, it wasn't really on PTR, so it seems like we'll just have to wait and see. Next, Legion LFR has been made available through Archmage Taimar in Dalaran. Now this is going to be pretty useful for farming up the LFR versions of the transmogs and maybe working in artifacts, but do remember that Legacy Loot Mode is not active, so the rewards are going to feel just a little bit sparse. Moving on to reputations, well, progress towards the 100 Exalted Rep achievement, which gives you a mount and a title, is now going to be shared between characters. This means that many players with old characters with legacy Exalted Reps will actually find themselves being a good bit further along to that achievement. Then Blizzard have also increased gold rewards from world quests, by quite a bit actually, such that it's all in more in line with the weekly expenses of things such as bonus rolls. Then there's also been some UI improvements. The default bag search is now a lot better. It includes item quality, Azerite traits, and stats. They've also changed the raid UI to show pending summons, which I think is extremely useful. So I guess that pretty much means that if somebody is out of range and doesn't have a pending summon, then chances are, well, they need to be summoned. Then the community UI has also been made a bit more responsive, and the scrapper window is now going to highlight scrappable gear in your bags, though to be honest with you, I would just use the easy scrap add-on for that. I think it's probably an easier solution overall. Then moving on to racials, well, the Arcane Torrent cooldown has been increased by 30 seconds, and the Troll Racial is down from 15% haste for 10 seconds to 10% haste for 12 seconds. And I mean, that does seem kind of fair. At the end of the day, it is a very powerful racial, and I think that change makes sense. Then next is some rep stuff. So with the Champion of Azeroth item level increase for the Heart of Azeroth quests, once you unlock those on your main, they're automatically unlocked on your alts regardless of your alt's rep. So that's very handy for alts. Then rep gains have also been doubled for the Legion allied race factions, and the ideal way to do these, by the way, is just to wait until you see one of the world quests on Argus that's a bind on account rep token. You then want to just do that world quest on all of your alts, and then mail the tokens to your main so that your main can use them. It's already a pretty handy technique, and it's going to be doubly powerful now, so that should be good, and it should make unlocking the Legion allied races a good bit faster. So there you go. That is the lesser known, I mean, I don't want to say lesser documented, things that we didn't really pick up on PTR, but obviously were in the patch notes. That's, that's just some of the changes that have went down with patch 8.1. Overall, I think there's lots of nice little things here. As I've said about patch 8.1, it's a bit of a roster update. Doesn't feel like a major patch. But I can't look at these changes, bar maybe the Mythic Plus one, I can't look at these and sort of think that they're bad. They are all good things. So it means that if you're going to be getting some alts up and getting, some basic gearing with your Titan Residuum and all that, it definitely is a way better game than it was 2 weeks ago. I suppose it's just that if you've been playing BfA for 3 months straight and you're sick of it, this probably isn't going to change your mind. And well, I mean, yeah, you shouldn't feel guilted by that. It's not enough to change your mind. So that's what's up there. Yeah, so there you go. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found it useful. And yeah, whatever you're doing in WoW or outside of WoW, I hope you have fun with it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.